Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivadadari Pijana Vallabha Girivada Dare Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamunatira Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanang Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtapraishva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, The Signs of God, Chapter 7, What Prahlad Learned in the Womb. Text 33. Evam nirjita shadvargaye kriyate bhaktir ishvare vasudeve bhagavati yaya samlabhyate ratihi. Evam nirjita shadvargaye kriyate bhaktir ishvare vasudeve bhagavati yaya samlabhyate ratihi. Evam nirjita shadvargaye kriyate bhaktir ishvare vasudeve bhagavati yaya samlabhyate ratihi. Would anyone like to try to read the verse?
Evam nirjita shadvargai kriyate bhaktirishvare vasudeve bhagavati yaya samlabhyate ratihi.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else?
Evam nirjita sarvagahi kriyate bhaktir ishvare vasudeve bhagavati ya samlavyate ratihi.
Thank you, Ma. Anyone else? Evam thus Nirjita subdued Shadvargahi by the six symptoms of the senses: lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Kriyate is rendered. Bhaktihi, devotional service. Ishvare, unto the Supreme Controller. Vasudeve, to Lord Vasudeva. Bhagavati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yaya, by which, excuse me, Sanglabhyate is obtained. Ratihi, attachment. Translation. By these activities, as mentioned above, one is able to cut down the influence of the enemies, namely lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. And when thus situated, one can render service to the Lord. In this way, one surely attains a platform of loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. By Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As mentioned in verses 30 and 31, one's first duty is to approach the spiritual master, the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to begin rendering service to him. Prahlad Maharaj proposed that from the very beginning of life, Komara Achare Pragyaha, a small child should be trained to serve the spiritual master while living at the Gurukul. Brahmachari Gurukule Vasandanto Gururhitam. Bhagavatam 7:12-1. This is the beginning of spiritual life. Guru Padashraya Sadhu Nuvartanam Saddharma Pricha. By following the instructions of the Guru and the Shastras, the disciple attains a stage of devotional service and becomes unattached to possessions. Whatever he possesses, he offers to the spiritual master, the Guru, who engages him in Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnuhu. The disciple follows strictly and in this way learns how to control his senses. Then, by using his pure intelligence, he gradually becomes a lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami, Adao Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangaha. In this way, one's life becomes perfect, and his attachment for Krishna becomes positively manifested. In that stage, he is situated in ecstasy, experiencing bhava and anubhava, as explained in the following verse. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadyate Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Evang nirjita shadvargai kriyate bhaktir ishvare vasudeve bhagavati yaya sanglabhyate ratihi. By these activities, as mentioned above, one is able to cut down the influence of the enemies, namely lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, jealousy. And when thus situated, one can render service to the Lord. In this way, one surely attains a platform of loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prahlad Maharaj is continuing in his song, his Gita. So this section of the Bhagavatam isn't usually explained as a Gita, just like in the 11th canto, the conversation between Krishna and Uddhava is described as the Uddhava Gita. Srimati Radharani's ecstasy of feeling separation from Krishna. After Uddhava delivers his message, she speaks to a bumblebee, rebuking him. And that's described as a Gita, the song of the bumblebee. There's there's obviously the Bhagavad Gita, which is triggered by Arjuna's lamentation. Um, but this is the wonderful, the entire Bhagavatam, in fact, is actually a Gita. One could actually even describe it as um, the Gita of Shukadev Goswami. Of course, it's conversations, nested conversations of one another, one after another, describing the highest instructions. So this is the wonderful benediction of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that it's poetry that is pregnant and full of instructions. It gives life. It The reader actually gets a new life, is born into eternal life. Mm. And so this is what the Bhagavatam gives. This poetry gives uh, gives one access to eternal life, life that is full of knowledge and life that is full of bliss. Mm. So just as a newborn baby brings new life into a family, um, and it even gives knowledge that, to the mother that, oh, I never thought I could actually be attached to another living entity this way. The father as well, a new father, step into the role, a new role that they actually didn't know that they could actually perform. So it brings that knowledge. And obviously, new babies bring bliss. So it is described that the Vedas are the mother and the spiritual master is the father. So what Prahlad Maharaj is saying in his song here, in this wonderful poetry, uh, these instructions that he's giving to his friends, uh, describing what he actually learned in the womb, he's giving them entrance into eternal life. He is by this knowledge, and they are going to be experiencing the ecstasy of that eternal life, as described in Prabhupada in the next verse. Anubhava and Bhava. So these activities are all driven, the impetus is to surrender to the spiritual master. This is what was said in verses 31, 30 and 31. And 32, yeah, 30 and 31. These are the activities of worshiping, offering your homage to the spiritual master, rendering service to the spiritual master. This is the benediction of the person, Bhagavat, just as I was describing that the benediction of the reading Srimad Bhagavatam brings new life, gives you knowledge, and it gives you this ananda, this bliss, this happiness that persists even beyond the destruction of this body. So here Prahlad Maharaj is saying that these devotional activities, which are directed by the spiritual master, gives you, first of all, freedom. You cut down the influence of these enemies, namely lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he describes lust as being the eternal enemy of the spirit soul. But where is it born from? How does, when the pure spirit soul coming down from the spiritual world, how do they actually get this covering? And Prabhupada, he describes in the purport to those series of verses, because the question that Arjuna asked Krishna is, by what is one compelled by force to act sinfully. So Arjuna is noting that actually there's some force, there's a conspiracy against the living entity, is that we don't want to act sinfully, and yet we can feel that there is this force. And Krishna explains that this force is actually born of, Prabhupada, he explains that this force is born of contact of one's pure love for Krishna with the mode of passion, Rajoguna. So when prema contacts Rajoguna, it turns into lust. And this lust is instead of wanting to please the senses of the master of the senses, Rishikena Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Uchate, one wants to please the possessor of the senses, which is you, the spirit soul. So because you have a body and you are possessing the senses, therefore you feel that these are my senses. So possession of something creates this illusion that it's actually yours. So without knowledge, one actually thinks that this is his body, his or her body. This is my ears, my eyes, my tongue, my nose, my genitals, my hands, my legs. And therefore, all that is entering into my senses must be mine. Yes. So uh, if I'm seeing the, I'm in my apartment or I'm in my house or I'm in my room at the ashram, what I see inside must surely be mine because I am inside. Yes. So and the process of giving that illusion up, what Prahlad Maharaj is talking about is becoming a kinchana. And one can easily become a kinchana when one serves the spiritual master. So if you look at the other processes of yoga, jnana yoga, and mystic yoga or Ashtanga yoga, there's no spiritual master. Or they can be a spiritual master in the beginning, a guide, but they are not the impetus for that activity, for becoming a kinchana. The impetus is your endeavor. So if we look at Jnana Yoga, Neti Neti, trying to say, no, I'm not this, I'm not that. Um, you are basically, you are not denying possession. You're just saying, okay, because there's a difference between me and the senses, because there's a difference, therefore I'm not that. But you're not directly denying possession, right? So in other words, there isn't a positive, because there's no positive engagement for those senses, the idea in the false ego that this might be mine isn't actually directly given up. Similarly, in mystic yoga, you actually, what you do with the senses is that you, the goal is to achieve a state of pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses, just like tortoise withdraws its senses into its shell. Similarly, the mystic yogi stops material activity, stops the flow of material desires into the heart by stopping sensory activity. And you begin with preparing. So there's both mystic yoga and jnana yoga. There's brahmachari, the study of the Vedas. This is called yama and niyama, remote preparation, following principles of ahimsa, etc. So you are engineering a lifestyle. And then you begin with asana. And then, so with asana, then by standing in one posture, for example, Prahlad Maharaj's father stood in very fearsome posture. So like tree-like position, Vriksha Kriya, if you can, yeah, put the heel of your foot inside your inner thigh, and then he stood hands high in the air like that. So the idea there is that, okay, if I can hold this posture for 1 hour, I can hold it for 10 hours, 1 day, 10 days, 100 days, a year, 100 years, 100 celestial years, like he did. Uh, Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad Maharaj's father. The idea is that you are not directly denying possession of those senses that you're using to hold the asana. You're saying, I control it. Because I can control it, therefore, I can stop the flow of lust, anger, greed, illusion, etc. That's the idea. But actually, because there's no positive engagement for the senses, there isn't an actual a purification of false possession. Hmm. So, whereas in Bhakti Yoga, it actually deals with it directly. So, because in the beginning, you you get put into contact of an advanced devotee, and the advanced devotee says, "Wake up at 4 a.m." and then you're going to sing the song, uh, Gurvastakam. You're going to worship the deity. Then you're going to sit down and then chant this Maha Mantra. And then you're going to attend Bhagavatam class, worship the Param Guru, Srila Prabhupada. And then, and then that's what you do every day. Yeah. Why? Because I said so. That is sadhana bhakti. So the sadhana bhakti, you're actually becoming a kinchana very directly, because what the senses are saying is, no, but how can I do this? This is, but this this just appears like an ordinary person. Okay, then when you're a little bit advanced, then you can see, no, uh, the spiritual master can't be an ordinary person, because he is the kind of austerities he's executing, you couldn't possibly execute, traveling around the world, multiple time zones at an advanced age, hardly eating. Or if he is eating, he's eating a Kadashi, only prasad for years on end. You couldn't possibly do that. So then, okay, you're a little advanced, then you don't see the spiritual master as an ordinary person. But still, there's resistance that, okay, when the spiritual master goes, okay, he's traveling, he's in the neighborhood, I'm going to be good. And then when he goes, okay, then I can relax. I can not be so strict in following the order. But still, you're contending with every single day. You're contending with that actually these senses are not mine. There is a program. So even though the anarthas may be there to delude the practitioner, the bhakti practitioner, that I may actually still, these senses might still be mine. But okay, when you're hungry, well, you got to offer your food. Okay, well, you get reminded, yes, this bhoga actually belongs to Krishna. And then if you don't chant your round, so after chanting for a few years, your reward pathways actually get changed in terms of how you feel satisfied. So if you don't do a particular service, if you don't chant your rounds, you can feel that, yes, something is very, very off. And therefore you feel even just having a basic level of satisfaction, just like people, they'll develop a dependency on maybe like they'll relax by playing video games. Some people in the evening, they might have a glass of alcohol. Some people They have some activity that they like to do, uh, whether it's sinful or it's not, but they become dependent on that for escaping the dr the drudgery of daily living, right? But for the practicing sadhaka, it's actually devotional service. Everybody in this call has that experience that if you don't do something, either you're chanting or you're reading, basically, even on a neurological level, just to have a basic, just to maintain a minimum level of dopamine so that you can just function, you need something. And because of that, that is evidence that you're always contending with the idea that actually these senses and my body aren't actually mine. Even though you're not advanced in yoga, you might not know advanced shastra like the Jnana yogis. You might not have the mystic power. Still, daily, you can actually experience that a sense, either the sense of hearing, sense of smelling, touching, ability to use your arms, your legs, your intelligence, something it actually doesn't belong to you because I need the sense to actually engage it in devotional service. I need the sense in order for me to actually feel some level, some minimum level of satisfaction so that I can actually go to sleep at night. So this is the power of devotional service, is that it actually because you are doing it either directly under, uh, one's initiating Diksha Guru or under the direction of Srila Prabhupada, then you, you're actually becoming a kinchana. You're in the process of becoming a kinchana. And this is what Prahlad Maharaj is saying, is then that the fruit of this akinchana is that you're going to eventually attain uh, raga, becoming a spontaneous devotee, and then you're going to experience bhava and anubhava. So in the history of devotional service, it doesn't just say, okay, just have faith that by becoming a kinchana, then you will enter into the kingdom of God. What that kingdom of God looks like, what activities they do, whether they drive yellow Cadillacs on brick roads, you don't have to speculate. It's all described. So, unlike other religions, uh, Krishna consciousness explains and gives a positive example in the history of Vaishnavism that a devotee was at this stage, then became purified by this instruction, or yeah, by this process in devotional service. So if you look at in the Bhagavatam, there's numerous examples. The devotees who became a Kinchana, for example, Bharat Maharaj. Um, he, at the age of 24, he was the emperor of the whole world. So emperor meant that his military power was undisputed. Everybody was paying taxes. So he was the federal government. So it's tax season now. And all the rulers, they would collect their own taxes, giving protection to the citizens, different kings, which would be equivalent to like presidents of different countries. And they would give some portion to Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, he's a Kshatriya, so he had wives, multiple wives, he had children, he had ministers, he had an entire system of global governance. So could you imagine if you had a system of espionage? In order actually in politics, in order to rule, you need to have a system of gathering intelligence. So this is true not only in today's governments, but also in governments worldwide. So in governments in former ages. So in order to run a successful a global government, uh, then he had this system. So to give up a system of intelligence where you know pretty much what's going on everywhere, very difficult. It's like if you became head of Google, which today's tech companies are like that. They gather intelligence on everybody. Just like in this country, if they offer you, when you buy insurance, auto insurance, they say you can pay a lower premium if you install their app, and then in that app, they monitor your driving. So that app has access to your location. It knows who you are. So this is, and then that data, it gets sold off. So this is surveillance. Yeah. So under the plea of a lower premium, the surveillance. And you opt into it. You're forced to opt into it. Um, if you go on the website, there's this website called Humantic AI. And based on how you click, what you click through, your behavior online, it can predict your personality to within a confidence interval of 92%. So it can know your degree of openness, neuroticism, agreeableness, which is personality typology of ocean. Um, yeah, you could even ask it, okay, the Enneagram type, it can also infer that. Yeah. So this is mass surveillance. So to give this up at the age of 24, to actually have this kind of system, give up this kind of power, who can? Yeah, it's very difficult. So Bharat Maharaj became a Kinchana. He actually gave all this up. And you read in the fifth canto about the history of Bharat Maharaj, how he was experiencing bhava. He was so close to prema, just knocking on the door of prema. Unfortunately, as we know the story, he became attached to a deer. But this was the product of giving up everything. So he gave up everything just so that he could actually engage full time in this Vishnu Smarana, remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead at all times. And so he was offering, they describe his activities, how he was doing his puja, how he was chanting the holy names of the Lord alone. He had given up full emperorship of the whole world at such a young age, giving up wives, giving up wealth. He was obviously, as emperor, the richest person. And even if a merchant maybe had more riches than him, certainly he was under the military duress of Bharat Maharaj. If that merchant stepped out of line and didn't want to pay their taxes, well, they would be subjected to the might of Bharat Maharaj. So power and so having both wealth and power is very rare. So you can have wealth, just like there's many rich people in this country, many billionaires, but do they have power? Can they actually go against the government? And some of them do, there's been obviously nowadays what's gripping the nation is the Epstein files. And there's evidence that power in this modern age has been maintained through honey trapping politicians, particularly with young girls, pedophilia, engaging these politicians in pedophilia, and then keeping them under their control. So this is the system of power that they've been using. But with Bharat Maharaj being an emperor, he didn't use this kind of um, this way of maintaining power, which is very in the mode of darkness. It's more in the mode of goodness, and the way the Kshatriyas do it, these Rajarshis, the way they maintain their power is you have to be engaged in your occupation. So if you're a Brahmana, then you have to do it. If you're not, then we're going to expose you. You're going to be exposed. So this is maintaining power in the mode of goodness. And so when people are engaged properly in their prescribed duty and they actually have employment. So there's no question of a man being unemployed. A man has to be employed because he naturally he's going to have lust, attraction for females, and there's going to be children. And so if a man is unemployed and yet is engaged in lusty activities, it produces ignorance, tamoguna, in society. But under the rulership of Bharat Maharaj and other Rajarshis, there's no question of unemployment. So everybody has employment according to their natural proclivities, which is in line with the mode of goodness. And this is how power is maintained, is that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you will get exposed and you will get punished. Yeah. So everybody then is happily engaged in their activities. Yeah. But Bharat Maharaj, even though he was a Kshatriya, a born Kshatriya, he gave that up. Yeah. He became a Kinchana. So this is the power of devotional service, is that even your own occupation that is linked to your false ego, directly linked to your false ego, you can also give that up. And in devotional service, it becomes very possible. So when you give up this occupation that's directly linked to your even livelihood, um, then you can even give up greed. You give up greed because you can see, oh, I'm actually being sustained by my life is being sustained by the spiritual master. So in other churches like the Church of the Seventh Day, the Mormon Church, what they do is that each child, when they come of age, when they graduate from high school, they have to go on a mission, overseas mission, where they actually engage in the mission, right? So, and at 16, they get their placement where they're gonna go. So if they're gonna go to Brazil, or yeah, or Africa, South America or Africa, where they're actually gonna spread the good news of the gospel of Jesus. And then for 2 years, they actually prepare. They'll learn like the local language, and they'll get reports about where they'll be staying and who will be their mentor in this in this mission. And so they leave the care of their parents, the comfort of their home in Utah, Salt Lake City, or some other part of the US, and they get a mentor. And that mentor, in one sense, becomes their guru, and they're engaged in the service of the church for 2 years. And then they come back, and that's basically their foundation of, uh, and then after the mission, then they get asked the question, okay, how are you going to actually serve the mission for the rest of your life? Yeah. And so when they pick their area of study, it's the foundation is based on how they're going to the experience is so powerful, connecting with people in this way, people who don't have as much resources as them. They gave up their comforts. So the idea, that process is, one sense, they becoming a kinchana. So in the same way, with us, we were fortunate to come from South Africa to come to Gita Nagari and just give up family ties. Yeah. Giving up the giving up a job that we were engaged in, we studied towards it, and we got to milk the cows. Yeah. So, so Prabhupada's mission is pregnant with these opportunities. Mm. And so if we could actually institute something like this, that all young children, um, who are born into the movement, you go overseas, you leave the comfort of your home, If you're born to devotee parents, then for some time you need to actually leave the comfort of your devotional home and go expand Prabhupada's mission. Stay in the temple and stay under the care of, that program and then try to expand it. Minimum 1 year, we should actually institute this. So other churches, like the Mormon Church, is growing by this program. And so similarly, we can also grow a lot. And the nice thing is that with devotional services, even though most of us can't follow this Komara Acharya Pragya to actually begin from a very young age. So if you can't do it, if you're not born into a devotee family, and you can't do it just before you go to university, well, everybody has an opportunity to actually even do it, even at an older age. Yeah, we were fortunate that we were able to do it before we entered into Grihastha Ashram. Of course, if you get Krishna consciousness when you're already married, then you gotta wait. But there should be this idea that, okay, when I retire, Vanaprastha, so suppose you get Krishna consciousness while you're married. So there should be this idea that I'm going to retire. So either you do it before Grihastha Ashram or you do it after. But this process of giving up the comfort of family life and going off to expand the mission, this is the way to becoming a Kinchana. Yeah, to actually give up this false possessiveness. And when you actually feel that daily, I'm actually being cared for, the person who's maintaining my livelihood, you can see it very clearly. It's the care of the spiritual master. I'm doing this because it's going to give pleasure to my spiritual master. And you can see how the Diksha Guru and the Chaita Guru, so the Diksha Guru is the initiating spiritual master, he gives the order, and then the Chaita Guru, who is a super soul, an expansion of Krishna, how they're actually maintaining you in that state. Oh, these giving up anger, greed, madness, and illusion, jealousy. It just comes off because you can see that there's not only a difference between you and the senses, but you are engaging your senses, not as a possessor, but as a servant. Yeah, so you can see that, yes, these senses, which are used for anger, are used for becoming deluded, uh, are used for going mad, going off on a tangent and just being absorbed in material activity, or even just being envious of other living entities. No, I am using them for the service of the Lord. And definitely, the Lord reciprocates with you. So because there's a relationship between the possessor of the Rishik and the Rishikesh, you actually experience the ecstasy of that relationship, which is bhava and anubhava. Because the Lord reciprocates, now you are actually able to um, you're able to experience a reality beyond the material senses. In other words, the senses of the soul get engaged. And so then you experience this bhava and anubhava. As we spoke last week, not only an education of the emotions, but an experience, a spiritual experience of the uh, the emotions, and therefore uh, you experience this bhava and anubhava. Hmm. Okay, so let us pray today. Leading up to Gopurnim, Gopurnim is less than, let's see, it is Monday, March the 3rd. So that is 7, 8, 9. So 10 days. So leading up to this Gopurnim, let us pray to Radha Damodar to help us read about the pastimes of the devotees like Bharat Maharaj, who became a Kinchana, read pastimes like Bali Maharaj, who also became a Kinchana, but under different, just the opposite. He actually went against the order of his spiritual master. But that was obviously not a bona fide spiritual master, because the Shukracharya, he was actually going against what the desire of the Supreme Lord. He became a Kinchana and he got the result of this Bhava and Anubhava. Similarly, and then another opposite example is a Sudama Brahmana. So he got everything. So the Lord gave him everything, greater opulence than even Indra himself. So he was attached to not having anything, so much so that he was trembling. You could see all the veins. He was so emaciated and just unhealthy physically, not having anything externally, but he was still attached. He was attached to actually being a Brahmana. And the Lord said, okay, I'm going to force you to even give that up by giving you opulence greater than Indra. So how when the Lord acts, so this process, there's, one-on-one a Kinchana giving up all possessions, but then we see in the pastimes of the Lord, there's just different aspects because it's all personal. Yeah, so you're becoming a Kinchana according to your specific relationship or according to the Lord's desire. And so let us meditate on these different examples and pray to the Lord how I can just tune in, my Lord, into your customized plan for me becoming a Kinchana so that I can enter into and experience daily the ecstasy of being your servant of the servant. Are there any questions, contentions, or reflections? Okay, so everybody knows exactly how they're going to become a Kinchana in this life, judging by the silence.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, I think someone else was about to comment.
Okay.
I'll step aside.
iPhone 9.
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Nagari Krishna Prabhu,
Okay,
for putting a few things in perspective. Hopefully, we can take it to heart and act on it so that we can go back home in this lifetime and not have to take many, many births again. So thank you for analyzing it very simply so that we can understand, that there is this pushing. And like you said, it's almost like the system is rigged against us. But still, if we use our intelligence that Krishna is giving, we can make a plan in our own individual lives. Because, like I say, often it's Krishna consciousness is a very personal thing for each one of us. So we all need to make a plan. Nobody can make a plan for us. Otherwise, we'll find at the time of death, that we have no plan. We don't have many friends around us or any friends around us that can give us any good advice, sober advice. And, basically lost opportunity to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. And we can see it, so many devotees are falling down and so many things are happening. And everybody's thinking, yes, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, but me, I'm smarter. But unless we can collectively make a plan, I think it's going to be very difficult to make the transition. Yes, Prabhupada's mercy is there. I know devotees are thinking, oh, he doesn't believe in Prabhupada's mercy. Yes, of course, Prabhupada's mercy is there. But we have to do the work, unfortunately. That's the bottom line. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your contribution. Very poignant advice. Yes, we should all have a life plan, and part of becoming a kinchana or becoming free, no possessions, is part of that life plan. Thank you, Prabhu, for always keeping us grounded. As you are the expert farmer, you know how to keep things grounded. Thank you. Targa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I want to thank you for a stellar class. You outdid yourself today. And so many things. Let me ask you one quick question here. Verse says that by subduing the 6 enemies, one can render service to Vasudeva and develop rati. So in our practical life, does sense control come first and then bhakti, or does bhakti itself give the strength to conquer the 6 enemies?
Just can't remember the verse, but basically, from my understanding of what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So, Prabhupada explaining this verse is give up your plan-making factory and just surrender. So when you're giving up the plan-making factory, you're not necessarily engaged in mechanically controlling your senses. You're just giving up your own plans and you're handing over your life to somebody else to actually make the plan for you. So it's or at least to be directed. So this isn't in contradiction to what Dhruva Prabhu was saying, is that there has to be, you have to identify with the plan that, okay, this is what my spiritual master wants me to do. So the principle of having somebody else direct your life, this is what the Sarvadharma and Parijaja. But then the details, Krishna is not going to force you in terms of the details. And that's really what Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu was explaining. So to answer your question, no, with devotional service, and Narada Muni, he defines devotional services, Sarvapardi Vrin Muktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. So the sense control comes from the act of engaging the senses in the master of the senses. So you just need to like Krishna, like his devotees, like the deities. And then that's the actual impetus for engaging. So it doesn't come from wanting to mastery over the senses, but it comes from the sentiment that, yes, Krishna is wonderful. Yes, his devotees are wonderful, so let me serve. And then the senses actually come under control. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
That's nice. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Maybe we have our wise Hari Chakra Prabhu. He can maybe take us home with a parable from Jesus, Jesus's life.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam, all glories to you, all glories to Gurudev, all glories to Prabhupada, and all glories to the assembled devotees. Yeah, thank you very much for your class. I mean, you've spelled out everything, what we actually need. And like the contribution Dhruva Prabhu also gave, how we should put our, our heads together and be able to make progress on the path of devotional life. Of course, personally, I have not read anywhere where one person by him or herself is able to achieve pure devotional service in isolation. Pure devotional service is always achieved in association because that is what exists in the spiritual world. Real spiritual life is deeply entail the sum and substance of real spiritual life is in association of other people, other devotees. So Krishna has also made it point clear. In the Ishopanishad, it is clearly, said that everything that emanates from Krishna is perfect and complete. And in that case, we understand that even this material world is perfect and complete. So if it's perfect and complete, then it means that everything that is here is for our benefit. Why is it for our benefit? It's for our benefit so that we can make good, if we make good use of it, then it will be advantageous for us to qualify us to get ourselves out of here and go back to the original place. But if we misuse it, then that is where our dilemma comes. So we coming together in a community like Gita Nagari, we coming together, whatever association we come in contact with, we should understand that it's an opportunity that has been given us as a stepping stone to make progress towards our ultimate goal of life. But if we don't see it that way, then we can never make progress. So, because let me give, for example, if you are there in isolation and you think, oh, I'm a very powerful brahmachari, and now I have all my senses controlled. In isolation, you may think like that. But let a beautiful girl come in front of you. Nice, beautiful, wonderful girl. That is the test. That is where you realize whether you have controlled your senses or not. So, as devotees, we are being given, Prabhupada has arranged this whole system in such a way that we will always be in association of other people. And the main purpose is we train ourselves how to properly interact with each other. And by that perfect interaction, we can bring our senses under control. Because if you think, oh, nobody can make me angry, I've already controlled my anger, you are lying. Let another devotee provoke you. That is where you realize whether your anger is under control. So, the way we deal with each other is very, very crucial in making progress in our spiritual life. But we must understand it in the perfect sense of it. We must understand it is that this is the opportunity which has been given us by Guru and Krishna to make progress. If we don't see it that way, it will be very difficult for us to make progress. We may be deceiving ourselves, thinking that, oh, I've gotten it. Now I'm doing a lot of service. Your service means nothing if it is not in connection with what? Pleasing the other devotees. And like you said, Christians call it the communion of saints. We call it sadhu sangha, right? We need that thing to make progress in spiritual life. So yeah, whatever you have said is very important. And you give the example of different people. Bharat Maharaj, why did he suffer? Because he misplaced the association. He was thinking he can make progress in isolation. So he was given the opportunity in the form of a deer. A deer came into his life, and he was supposed to make a good use of that association with the deer. And what did he do? He became more absorbed in the deer. He became more absorbed in thinking of the deer, in his personal affection for the deer, right? Rather than using the interaction with the deer in association with the Lord. So what happened? At the end of the day, he was thinking about the deer at the time of death. So he has to come back and repeat his existence. So similarly, if I have association with Nagari Krishna Prabhu, and I'm thinking of that association in the terms of what I will benefit from it, right? Then I miss the point. But if I think of interacting with Nagari in the sense of how can I use this association to please Guru and Krishna, then I make good use of it and I make progress. So at the end of the day, I'll be qualified to go back home, back to God. So thank you very much for all the information you gave. I mean, it's on point, but we must learn how to use it properly. Otherwise, we will keep coming and going for eternity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for that synthesis. Yes, even though Prahlad Maharaj is directing us to becoming a kinchana, as Prabhupada is describing in the purport, but sadhu sangha, it's the seed of the Bhakti Lata Bij gets implanted into the heart of the living entity from sadhu sangha, from the association of from a devotee. Even when one gets to this advanced stage of becoming a kinchana, sadhu sangha must still be there. Thank you, Prabhu, for reminding us that actually at every step, this prema, Krishna is always surrounded by loving devotees. Similarly, a devotee who's actually a progressive, who's progressing and who's also on the perfectional stage, is also always surrounded by, he or she must be surrounded by the loving devotees of Krishna. Yeah, so thank you, Prabhu, for reminding us. This is a very important aspect of a kinchana, is seeing how one is actually always dependent on the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Thank you.
Thanks. One more comment.
Yes, Prabhu.
So, yeah, we always use this term very, very loosely, making the devotees happy. So I'm thinking about Bhishma Dev. By him not speaking when the disrobing of Draupadi was going on, he was actually making Dhritarashtra very, very happy. And everybody else, Duryodhana, the whole clan, he made them so happy. And of course, he had to suffer, Bhishma Dev himself for that act of not speaking. So I think we need to maybe be a little bit more introspective about what it means to be loving association, because, we can love each other to bits. I love my family. I love my extended family. I love everybody. But, what is the basis of that love? So we need to be more introspective about when we say that we want to be pleasing the devotees and we want to be amongst loving devotees. I mean, I think someone used this example some time back that, we could be even going to the Sunday feast in the association of devotees for 30 years and make no advancement. So did the Sunday feast really help? Yes, it definitely did help, because taking all that prasadam, the amount of layers that got shed is unimaginable. We can't even measure, because you were taking Krishna prasadam every Sunday. But, what's the quality of the relationships? Are we discussing Krishna when we meet each other, or we just say, Haribol, how are you? Haribol, how are you? And, that's the sum and substance of the relationship. We're not developing any relationship. So, this term of making the devotees happy, I think, needs more clarity. When we're making the devotees happy, we are discussing Krishna Katha, the Lord's name, form, qualities, pastimes. And of course, there's also the 6 loving exchanges. So, yeah, I think, we need to share more like that. And in that way, we can have happy devotees that are constantly, hearing, chanting, glorifying the Lord, and 6 loving exchanges there. But otherwise, like I said, we always just say, make the devotees happy, please the devotees. I want to be in loving association. Yeah, sometimes there's tough love. And, we need to understand what is the meaning of tough love. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj spoke about it extensively. And then Ari Chakraprabhu, thanks for touching on, yes, also, of course, it cannot be done in isolation. And I found this nice quote the other day someone had posted, and I'm sharing it here on the Connections group. And don't read the first 2 lines because, that'll disturb your consciousness. But if you continue reading and, understand the message that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is giving, then you won't be so disturbed. You'll be able to digest the meaning of, the message, because that is a contentious point. And of course, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, brings everything right to the front. We're not hiding anything. We're not secretive about anything. But, we should be able to talk about these things. But, he was saying we all volunteered to commit ourselves for the benefit of the whole. This is the only way. There's no other way, no other way, no other way, I say. Otherwise, in isolation, like Hari Chakra was saying, what can we achieve? Very little or nothing, practically. So, something to think about. We have some basis for our next class questions. So next class, whoever's giving class tomorrow, they should have 100,000 questions. So please budget 3 hours for the Bhagavatam class tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Obviously, you plugging your comment, obviously I'm going to read the first line right now. Yeah. So the first line is, a temple is not a marketplace or hotel where we try to fulfill everyone's needs and desires. From Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Surrender, the Key to Eternal Life, Chapter 2. So this is, your reflection is a clear example of how one's becoming a kinchana gets refined in the association of devotees. So without the association of devotees, you can't get to this refinement. Just asking the question of, okay, what does it actually mean to have loving exchanges in the association of devotees? This is fine. This is a refinement because in the beginning, we understand becoming free of possessions, it's mainly external. But actually, the real where the magic happens is when you're questioning on the level of ego, which is what you are describing here. Because ultimately, if the ego gets dismantled, then definitely we can continue to actually engage in the service of the Lord. And Lord Chaitanya described this Trinadapi Sunichena, asking yourself what does it mean to be lower than the grass in the street or more tolerant than a tree in the association of devotees. This is a refinement of a kinchana. So thank you, Prabhu, for that very valuable example of how we are always dependent on the association of devotees. Madhalila Kishori.
Hi, Krishna. Good morning. Good morning. What a wonderful, wonderful class. So you always go so deep, Agari Krishna, and it takes a while for the questions to form for me. And then I love the devotees who have been speaking this morning, Dhruva Maharaj and Hari Chakra Prabhu. I was thinking about the temple when Dhruva Maharaj just put that there, that in Christianity it says that you're Corinthians 6:19, you should know that your body is not your own, it's the temple of the living God. And in fact, the fullness of that verse is that it's not your own because it's part of sadhu sangha. It's part of the body which is what Christians say, that actually the body is made up of all of the saints in the communion of the saints. And that's where the indwelling happens, because you're in communion with devotees, you're in communion with other saints. This is how you become part of the temple of the living God. But my question had to do with it. It just floored me when you talked about the insidiousness of the surveillance of apps and how you don't even realize. Like, I'm thinking, okay, so like with my medical insurance, they insist that you have the app. It never occurred to me what data they might be, all the time recording. But I was thinking more recently and reading about the insidiousness of these things that young people look at, Instagram, TikTok. I have no idea. There's all this country. I have no idea. I've never had a tick, wouldn't know the tick from the top. But what they're saying is that it's the way that it invades their consciousness, because it erodes the ability to be attentive. And I was thinking about how even as we chant and we grow in our sadhana bhakti, we struggle with attention, and how hard it must be now. And I wish if you could speak a little bit about this, when you're dealing with young people who've been exposed to this since they were small. I mean, some little kids are online, looking at these things, these TikToks and whatever, these short term videos, whatever they call them. And it's eroding their ability to be attentive. And then to chant, what do we say? You need to chant attentively, right? And so the insidiousness of that, and when you are going places like the Bhakti Lounge, say, and dealing with these young people, are you seeing that? And how do we help them with that? Because you're asking them now, just start to chant. I remember our Guru Maharaj said, and it always kind of cracks me up, he started with one bead. And he said, no, not one round, one bead, But like, how do we help them to realize that the need to be attentive in sadhana, and support them in becoming attentive when their attention at every turn is being attacked and eroded?
Thank you, Ma, for your reflection and your question. So I'll just answer that question with a personal example. So I remember that, I came to the farm and my phone was actually giving me trouble. So to actually integrate fully into, just being a cowherd man, excuse me, and just doing my service, all sorts of anarthas were coming up because I still had one foot in my old way of working and living through my phone. And then I have the other foot on at Gita Nagari in the milking barn, etc. So I was telling Guru Maharaj, just Guru Maharaj, I'm just having a lot of trouble. So then he's like, okay, so you have to give up your phone. You have to give it up. No more smartphone. I was just like, I protested. I was like, no, Maharaj, but I'm sending Dhruva Prabhu updates on the health of the cows and he appreciates it. So I get to milk the cows and then I'll take a picture of the foot of the cow or the symptom so that Dhruva, because the whole, my service was how to keep Dhruva Prabhu out the barn, right? So I needed to take care of business so that Dhruva doesn't always have to come to the barn. So that was my service. So my smartphone, I was protesting with Guru Maharaj that I need it. I'm using it this way in Damodar service. And he was like, no, you have to give it up. So so actually, and I gave it up, and it was just basically it became light and day in terms of stepping out of my old way of living and rendering devotional service into the new way. So there has to be this, so even for young people, even like, for example, this Center for Humane Technology that produced this documentary called The Social Dilemma, illustrating very nicely what you're describing, how it actually erodes young people's attentiveness, etc. There has to be a stage of giving up the smartphone. It's the only way. You actually have to give it up for some time. In my case, yeah, it was like I got like a dumb phone, a flip phone. And Dhruva Prabhu, to his credit, he was like, he allowed it. He was like, okay, well, Agar Krishna was giving me these updates, so now we have to find a workaround. And he worked with me, and it was only for some time. And then after that, I was just like fully now, okay, I'm here at Gita Nagari and this is who I am. I milk cows, and I just tried to maintain my attentiveness. So this was under the direction of the spiritual master. So you yourself as well, you are elderly, and you can give your perspective to young people is that because you haven't had this distraction in your life, how wonderful, how fortunate you are. You can actually describe how, for you, your consciousness, you're able to actually focus on Krishna because the way you're using your smartphone is your intelligence isn't embedded in the smartphone. So your age has created that gap. So you can describe to young people that you actually need this gap where you can see how you can still live, still chant, still perform devotional service without a smartphone. And then once you've actually experienced that, then when you actually do use it again, it'll be very clear how you're going to use it, the boundaries that you're using, that you're going to establish. So for me, from that time until death, I'm going to use parental control software. I'm going to have an accountability partner to ensure that my devices, they shut down at a certain time, and that the content that I view online is filtered, you know. So it's like some young person may be like, oh my God, I'm giving up my freedom. No, actually not having the software to actually filter and then to have the devices shut down at a certain time. You're giving up your freedom to the CIA because these apps are so insidious. They've been designed to prey on the weaknesses. Basically, if you read Bhagavad Gita, you can, just like, for example, slot machines, right? Once somebody starts using a slot machine, because there's this enemy that Prahlad Maharaj is describing, greed. It's at the level of ego, right? So these devices, they have been designed to actually agitate these enemies of lust, greed at the ego level. And so because they're so refined, there's no question of being in control. The person who designed the software is in control. So therefore, for me, I know is that as long as I'm not on Krishna Prem, even when I'm at Bhava, I will have an accountability partner while using a smartphone. If I do get there, in this lifetime, there's no question, this is how this technology, this is how well designed it is. It's incredible, actually. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and it made me realize the way to for young people to begin giving up. Maybe you're not raised from birth as a brahmachari, but giving up that smartphone for a young person, even for like I think a day, it seems to be an amazing sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
yes, it really does. And thank you. And I never thought about it that way either. That yes, even as an elderly person, my experience without that and how therefore it's not a stumbling block can be a way to offer a bridge to someone. So thank you very much about it.
Yeah, correct. You are very fortunate actually that so somebody like for me, I was born in 89. So I know what's life like before the smartphone, before the mobile phone. We saw the whole evolution, brick phones, and then there was Blackberries, and then the smartphones. So we know what life like to feel because ultimately the living entity, the young person, they want to feel the same feelings that older people want to feel love, appreciation, affection. They want to feel all these things. But because you know exactly there's a period in your life where you experienced all that range of emotions without devices, the devices, you can actually, you can just keep them in their place. They can actually serve how you want to feel those things. But then with young people, because they haven't experienced that, and the propaganda, because as Gurudev explains it, these are weapons of mass distraction. They don't know a life without these weapons. They don't see them as weapons, they see them as crutches, or they see them as necessities. Like, in our apartment, the electricity can go out, it can flash. Sometimes the water goes out. What happens? We just sit peacefully. There's no water, but we're peaceful. But if the Wi-Fi goes out, you know. So that's how it is with young people, is the Wi-Fi is actually the water. The constant flow of information into their brains. It's like they I'm like being waterboarded. So that's what it felt like when Gurudev was like telling me I need to give up my smartphone. I thought, oh my God, like the life is going to get drained out of me. But then I remembered, oh, actually, I lived without a smartphone. Smartphones came around, first iPhone was like early 2000s. So pretty much for, my teenage life, from birth up until my teenage life, I lived without a smartphone, so I knew exactly. So young people need to experience this. Yeah. And even at the higher levels of bhakti as well, is part of becoming, even experiencing life without air, life without water, life without dairy, life without gluten, life without sugar. Can I actually still experience bhakti? Can I still feel the ecstasy? So part of becoming a kinchana, not only is it meant to give up the smartphone, but it's meant to give up all these things, actually. Yeah. And as Dhruva Prabhu was mentioning, even asking yourself, okay, what does love look like in the association of devotees? So ultimately, we have to give up this body. But the only thing that we should not give up is the sadhu sangha that Harichakra Prabhu was mentioning. And and then in that state of lucidity, we should see how the sadhu sangha is actually providing all life and sustenance, just not the other things for my body, my mind, my intelligence. Okay, dear devotees, thank you so much for a lively class and yeah, just interaction. I always like, oh, Harichakra Prabhu, last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I mean, in reacting to the question Lila Kishore Prabhu asked, basically in devotional life, most of the time devotees, we are fond of using some terminology when we want to gratify our senses with a particular thing. Then we will try to convince ourselves about, oh, uta varagya, we have to use everything in the service of the Lord, right? But meanwhile, deep within, we might have a different intention altogether. What we refuse to understand is that Krishna knows us. He knows our heart. And we ourselves, like I always say, there are two people you can never deceive. There are two people that you can never deceive. Number one is yourself, and number two is Krishna. These personalities, you can never deceive them. Because if you are doing something and you have a ulterior motive, you know it deep in your heart that this is my ulterior motive. So that sometimes in Kali Yuga, we are so deprived of certain things. We are so sinful. We are so materially conscious that Krishna is so merciful to us that sometimes he doesn't even look at our intention. He only looks about the action we perform and blesses us. Sometimes too, he looks at our intentions and overlook the action. Let me give an example. Putana had an intention to kill Krishna, but Krishna didn't look at Putana's intention, but he looked at the actions she performed by giving him breast milk, right? So Krishna overlooked the intention of Putana and just accepted the action. The other one too, the wife of what do we call it? The wife of Vidu. He was offering the peels of the banana to Krishna and throwing the actual banana away. Krishna didn't look at the action. Krishna looked at the intention. This is the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is so merciful. You see, so sometimes when we perform some action, in the initial stages, we may not be absorbed. We may not have the, what we call it, the absorption. Like if we are chanting, we might not be very absorbed in chanting. We will mechanically do it. But that shouldn't deprive it. That shouldn't, what do we call it? Discourage us. We should keep on. Just chant. If even it's mechanical, just chant. And the more we go, the more we try our best, even though it's mechanical. But if Krishna sees the effort we are putting in just to chant his holy names, then at a certain point in time, he will bless us with his mercy. And when the mercy begins to flow in, then the mercy will help us go deeper. And now gradually we will start absorbing. We will start being, more, what do we call it? Into the internal. So that's why we need Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy is always there for us. But the Guru trains us, like the example you gave. Krishna's mercy is flowing in you. But because you were not directing it properly, then the Guru had to set in. So you said, oh, you were trying to convince yourself that, oh, I want to use my smartphone for the service of Radha Damodara. But the Guru knows more. So the Guru said, yeah, even though that's what, but I don't want you to use it. This is where the mercy of the Guru kicks in. You know that. So as devotees, if even we are not very much absorbed in the what do we call it, in the deeper aspects of devotional life, we shouldn't kill ourselves. Let's try our best. Just keep the mechanical aspect. And the more just the effort we are putting in alone, that effort is what is going to let the mercy of Krishna kick in. And once the mercy of Krishna kicks in, then the absorption will start flowing. And the Guru will come in and direct us how to fully maintain the absorption. And biblically, the example I can give is the example of Judas. When Mary Magdalene poured expensive oil to wash the feet of Jesus, you know what Judas said? Judas said, "What, Master? Why are we wasting this expensive oil? We can sell it and use the proceeds to feed the poor." You see what he was saying? It's like he had a good plan. But no, he had his motive. His motive is that he was the treasurer. And that if they sell the expensive oil and the money come, he can swindle some of the money. So even though he was giving external philosophy that we can sell and give the proceeds to feed the poor, but his intention was different. And immediately Jesus corrected him that for me as a guru, I will not be with you every day. But for the poor, they will always be with you. So That philosophy of Uta Varagya, sometimes we want to use it and trying to cover our real intention, but it's okay. If even we are doing it mechanically, let's do it mechanically. But the mechanical thing, when we do it in association of other devotees, right, that is where the mercy of the devotees, the mercy of Guru, the mercy of Krishna will kick us. It will spank us somehow or the other into our absorption. And then there will come a time when you take your beats and you are chanting, immediately you feel goose pimples on your body. It's not every day that it comes. Once a while. I mean, every devotee, no matter how sinful you are, once a while you may be chanting and immediately you chant. You say Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You feel something within, something. That is Krishna telling you that the process you are following is good. Keep it up. And one day you come to the level of the Uttama Adhikaris, where nothing will be mechanical anymore. Everything will be full absorption. That you cannot even stay one day without thinking of Krishna, right? We don't have to rush ourselves. Let's take our time and go according to what Prabhupada has laid down for us. Because we only need one. The system Prabhupada has set up is so powerful. And I'll give you an example, another example, biblical example. Elijah, he was moving with his disciple Elisha, and he told him, he says, I will be whisked from this earth. And when I'm being whisked, if you see me going, I'll give you double my power. So as they were walking, out of the blue, a fire of chariot came and whisked Elijah. But before Elijah was whisked, Elijah was smart. He jumped and grabbed the chadder, Elijah's chadder. And simply because he saw Elijah and grabbed his chadder, he had the double portion of Elijah's power. So that chadder alone, he can hit a river, and the chadder will let the river part into two, and he can walk through the river. If somebody dies, he can just cover the person with the chadder, and the person wakes up again, comes back to life. And that's why we must always see our guru. The analogy is we must see our guru like Elisha saw Elijah living. So we must always be absorbed in trying to focus that we want to see the guru when he lives. Wanting to see the guru when he lives is getting ourselves absorbed, always studying the guru and studying his way of life and studying how we can also emulate his way of life. This is the way we see the guru. And by doing so, he will give us the double part of his power. And then we can be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Right? Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, we must give up this, as part of becoming a Kinchana, give up this covetousness, which is commonly used with the principle, lofty principle of Yukta Vairagya. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for taking us home. This has been one of my favorite Bhagavatam classes of the ages. It was so very much enlivening, and obviously it can continue. So yes, devotees, let us continue this conversation throughout the day with other devotees about refining this Akinchana. How can, in my personal life, how can we actually give up some of this covetousness, these material definitions of love, and the devotional service in general in the lower modes. Yes, let us give this up, come to the mode of goodness, so that we can actually cash in into its real fruits, and its real fruits is this bhava and anubhava. And as Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu said, tomorrow's verse is a big one. So let us let us prepare for that as well. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Damodar ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Pramanande Haribo.